once again back to Exploring Arda, a Tolkien-centered podcast where I'm your host, Jackson, and I'll be going through a bunch of Tolkien's works other than Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. And actually today we will be finishing the Adventures of Tom Bombadil, so finishing up from this book here that I'm reading from. I'll also be reading another short story pretty soon. I would consider it a short story from this book because I don't have the other book for it, but that's going to be for another time because we are, like I said, going to be finishing Adventures of Tom Bombadil, which has been very fun, especially just because it's, it's poetry, so I don't really read a lot of poetry, even though Tolkien has a bunch, throughout all of his books. It's definitely one of his, he has a lot of strong suits, but he knows how to write poetry very well. So, I will be going over 3 stories today. One is called The Hoard, one is called The Sea Bell, and the last one, it's literally called The Last Ship. So, I think it only makes sense. So, I think with all that rambling out of the way, we'll get right to the first one, The Hoard. When the moon was new, and the sun young, of silver and gold the gods sung. In the green grass they silver spilled, and the white waters they with gold filled. Ere the pit was dug or hail yawned, ere dwarf was bred or dragon's bond, there were elves of old, in strong spells, under green hills and hollow dells. They sang as they wrought many fair things, in the bright crowns of the elf kings. But their doom fell, and their song waned, by iron hewn and by steel chained. Greed that sang not, nor with mouth smiled, in dark holes their wealth piled. Graven silver and carven gold, or over elven home the shadow rolled. There was an old dwarf in a dark cave, to silver and gold his fingers clave. With hammer and tongs and anvil stone he worked his hands to the hard bone, and coins he made in strings of rings, and thought to buy the power of kings. But his eyes grew dim and his ears dull, and the skin yellow on his old skull. Through his bony claw with a pale sheen, the stony jewels slipped unseen. No feet he heard, though the earth quaked, when the young dragon his thirst slaked. And the stream smoked in his dark door. The flames hissed on the dank floor, and he died alone in the red fire. His bones were ashes in the hot mire. There was an old dragon under gray stone. His red eyes blinked as he lay alone. His joy was dead and his youth spent. He was knobbed and wrinkled, and his limbs bent. In the long years to his gold chained, in his heart's furnace the fire waned. To his belly's slime gems stuck thick, silver and gold he would snuff and lick. He knew the place of the least ring, beneath the shadow of his black wing. Of thieves he thought on his hard bed, and dreamed that on their flesh he fed. Their bones crushed and their blood drank, his ears drooped and his breath sank. Mail rings rang, he heard them not, a void echoed in his deep grot. A young warrior with a bright sword called him forth to defend his hoard. His teeth were knives, and of horn his hide, but iron tore him, and his flame died. There was an old king on a high throne. His white beard lay on knees of bone. His mouth savored neither meat nor drink, nor his ears song. He could only think of his huge chest with carven lid, where pale gems and gold lay hid. In secret treasury in the dark ground, its strong doors were iron bound. The swords of his thanes were dull with rust, his glory fallen, his rule unjust. His halls hollow, and his bowers cold, but king he was of elvish gold. He heard not the horns in the mountain pass, he smelt not the blood on the trodden grass, but his halls were burned, his kingdom lost, in a cold pit his bones were tossed. There is an old hoard in a dark rock, forgotten behind doors none can unlock. That grim gate no man can pass, on the mound grows the green grass. There sheep feed and the larks soar, and the wind blows from the seashore. The old hoard the night shall keep, while earth waits and the elves sleep. And that is the end of this story. Definitely going back to the fantasy realm here. And you could definitely say that it's like Middle Earth. And it kind of like makes me think of kind of like the Elder Days, I suppose, of like Beleriand, so like First Age stuff. where what was the very first line was the moon was new and the sun young. So that's what kind of got me back to like Silmarillion era. So that's kind of pretty cool. I definitely enjoy that. And Elven Home is referenced as well. But I think the main theme of this hoard is that gold and jewels and silver and all that stuff has led adventurers and even dragons to their own demise, pretty much. So their own greed, no matter how personal it is or what brought them there, definitely brought doom with them. So that's what I think, at least, especially because, it began with the elves here in the first page, and then it shifted over to the dwarves. But the dwarf, he basically died in the dragon's fire, and when the dragon was confronted with the warrior with the sword, the dragon was pretty much slain by him. As it says, Iron tore him and his flame died. And then this other one with the old king, basically he's just kind of like not resting. He is basically not resting. There you go. Because of his old age, he's just constantly thinking of his treasure ground here. So basically thinks about it until he's basically all bones. So in a cold pit, his bones were tossed, literally. So this king basically put way too much thought on his treasure. And then like the last paragraph, page I should say, is basically just saying that the treasure hoard is still there and it will continue to plague the minds of adventurers for a very long time. At least that's my take on the hoard. Let me know what you guys think, because we're going to go right into the next story, which is called The Sea Bell. I walked by the sea, and there came to me, as a starbeam on the wet sand, a white shell like a sea bell. Trembling it lay in my wet hand. In my fingers shaken I heard waken, a ding within, by a harbor bar, a buoy swinging, a call ringing, over endless seas, faint now and far. Then I saw a boat silently float on the night tide, empty and grey. It is later than late. Why do we wait? I leapt in and cried, "Bear me away!" It bore me away, wetted with spray, wrapped in a mist, wound in a sleep, to a forgotten strand in a strange land, in the twilight beyond the deep. I heard a sea bell swing in the swell, dinging, dinging in the breakers' roar, on the hidden teeth of a perilous reef, and at last I came to a long shore. White it glimmered and the sea simmered, with star mirrors in a silver net. Cliffs of stone pale as rule bone in the moon foam were gleaming wet. Glittering sand slid through my hand, dust of pearl and jewel grist, trumpets of opal, roses of coral, flutes of green and amethyst. But under cliff eaves there were glooming caves, weed curtained, dark and gray. A cold air stirred in my hair, and the light waned as I hurried away. Down from a hill ran a green rill, its waters I drank to my heart's ease. Up its fountain stair to a country fair, of ever eve I came, far from the seas. Climbing into meadows of fluttering shadows, flowers lay there like fallen stars, and on a blue pool, glassy and cool, like floating moons, the nenuphars. Alders were sleeping and willows weeping, by a slow river of rippling weeds. Gladden swords guarded the fords, and green spears and arrow reeds. There was an echo of song all the evening long, down in the valley, many a thing, running to and fro, hairs white as snow, voles out of moles, moths on the wing, with lantern eyes, in quiet surprise. Brogs were staring out of dark doors. I heard dancing there, music in the air, feet going quick on the green floors, but wherever I came it was ever the same. The feet fled and all was still, never a greeting, only the fleeting, pipes, voices, horns on the hill. Of river leaves and the rush sheaves I made me a mantle of jewel green, a tall wand to hold and a flag of gold. My eyes shone like the star sheen. With flowers crowned I stood on a mound, and shrill as a call at cockcrow. Proudly I cried, "Why do you hide? Why do none speak wherever I go? Here now I stand, king of this land, with gladdened sword and reed mace. Answer my call, come forth all, speak to me words, show me a face." Black came a cloud as a night shroud, like a dark mole groping I went, to the ground falling, on my hands crawling, with eyes blind and my back bent. I crept to a wood, silent it stood, in its dead leaves, bare were its boughs. There must I sit, wandering in wit, while owls snored in their hollow house. For a year and a day there must I stay. Beetles were tapping in the rotten trees, spiders were weaving, in the mold heaving, puffballs looming about my knees. At last there came a light in my long night, and I saw my hair hanging grey. Bent though I be, I must find the sea. I have lost myself, and I know not the way. But let me be gone. Then I stumbled on. Like a hunting bat shadow was over me. In my ears dinned a withering wind, and with ragged briars I tried to cover me. My hands were torn and my knees worn, and years were heavy upon my back. When the rain in my face took a salt taste, and I smelled the smell of sea-wrack. Birds came sailing, mewing, wailing. I heard voices in cold caves, seals barking and rocks snarling, and in spout holes the gulping of waves. Winter came fast, into a mist I passed. To land's end my ears I bore. Snow was in the air, ice in my hair. Darkness was lying on the last shore. There still afloat waited the boat, in the tide lifting, its prow tossing. Weary I lay as it bore me away, the waves climbing, the seas crossing, passing old hulls clustered with gulls, and great ships laden with light. Coming to haven, dark as a raven, silent as snow, deep in the night. Houses were shuttered, wind round them muttered, roads were empty. I sat by a door, and where drizzling rain poured down a drain, I cast away all that I bore. In my clutching hand some grains of sand, and a seashell, silent and dead. Never will my ear that bell hear, never my feet that shore tread. Never again, as in sad lane, in blind alley and in long street, ragged I walk, to myself I talk, for still they speak not, men that I meet. And yeah, that is the end of, I think it was Seabell. Oh man, I almost forgot the title. Yes, The Seabell, my bad. This is actually an interesting poem, I think, an interesting story. I've not read The Seabell before, so this is the first time that I've read it, which I'm very glad that I did, because it's a nice little adventure. I think from what the first, I guess, impression is that this person, whoever it is, kind of went over to this coast, found a seashell, basically, but they didn't expect it to be some sort of like magical seashell, I guess. And basically, this seashell kind of whisked them away to an unknown land that I guess nobody has been to, and they get pretty much stuck on this island, and they kind of see all these like darker sides of the island, but also some very beautiful sides of the island. And eventually, I guess they kind of like lose track of time when they're over here, as it's a magical island, because it basically comes from the beginning where they are, which I suppose might be months or weeks away, because at the end it's all cold and it's winter time. So they definitely basically just where was it? There must I sit, wandering in wit, while owls snore in their hollow house. So basically they're just like waiting out this time until they're released from the island. I want to guess that's kind of what it is. But they also can't see any of the inhabitants on the island. So there's a bunch of like music and voices and things like that, but he can never hear, or not hear. He cannot see them. He or she, I should say. I don't even know. It doesn't even specify. But it does say king of the land, so. But yeah, basically, I think, from what it kind of sounds like, is that it's a bunch of ghosts partying it up on the island. Because, I mean, you can't really see them, but also at the same time, it's also a magical island. So, obviously, this story is up for interpretation, but I think it would be really funny if he was whisked away to a ghost island, where kind of like time is just either slowed or fast, or I don't know. So, it's a very fun story. Definitely enjoyed it first time around. So, we shall get into the last story of Adventures of Tom Bombadil, which we haven't even heard of Tom Bombadil this whole rest of the time, but like I said at the beginning of the series, is that I just imagine Tom kind of just reliving or retelling all these stories to random adventurers, or maybe just, singing when he's in his garden and forest, and maybe singing to Oh, moy. Okay, well, I forgot her name. Goldberry, there you go. Singing the Goldberry with all these tales and songs. So, let's get into it with The Last Ship. So here we go. Ferial looked out at 3 o'clock. The grey night was going. Far away, a golden cock, clear and shrill, was crowing. The trees were dark in the dawn pale, waking birds were cheeping. A wind moved cool and frail, though dim leaves creeping. She watched the gleam at window grow, till the long light was shimmering on land and leaf, on grass below. Grey dew was glimmering. Over the floor her white feet crept, down the stair they twinkled. Through the grass they dancing stepped, all with dew besprinkled. Oh, my bad. Her gown had jewels upon its hem, as she ran down to the river, and leaned upon a willow stem, and watched the water quiver. A kingfisher plunged down like a stone, in a blue flash falling. Bending reeds were softly blown, lily leaves were sprawling. A sudden music came to her came, as she stood there gleaming, with free hair in the morning's flame, on her shoulders streaming. Flutes were there, and harps were rung, and there was sound of singing, like wind voices keen and young, and far bells ringing. A ship with golden beak and oar and timbers white came gliding. Swans went sailing on before, her tall prow guiding. Fair folk out of Elvenland, in silver grey, were rowing, and 3 with crowns she saw there stand with bright hair flowing. With harp in hand they sang their song, to the slow oars swinging. Green is the land, the leaves are long, and the birds are singing. Many a day with dawn of gold this earth will lighten, many a flower will yet unfold, ere the cornfields whiten. Then whither go ye, boatmen fair, down the river gliding? To twilight and to secret lair, in the great forest hiding? To northern isles and shores of stone, on strong swans flying, by cold waves to dwell alone, with the white gulls crying? Nay, they answered, far away, on the last road faring, leaving western havens grey, the seas of shadow daring. We go back to Elvenhome, where the white tree is growing, and the star shines upon the foam, on the last shore flowing. To mortals' fields say farewell, middle earth forsaking. In Elvenhome a clear bell in the high tower is shaking. Here grass fades and leaves fall, and sun and moon wither, and we have heard the far call that bids us journey thither. The oars were stayed, they turned aside. Do you hear the call, Earth Maiden? Ferial, Ferial, they cried. Our ship is not full laden. One more only we may bear. Come, for your days are speeding. Come, Earth Maiden Elven fair, our last call heeding. Ferial looked from the river bank, one step daring. Then deep in clay her feet sank, and she halted staring. Slowly the elven ship went by, whispering through the water. I cannot come, they heard her cry. I was born Earth's daughter. No jewels bright her gown bore, as she walked back from the meadow, under roof and dark door, under the house shadow. She donned her smock of russet brown, her long hair braided, and to her work came stepping down. Soon the sunlight faded. Year still after year flows down the 7 rivers. Cloud passes, sunlight glows, reed and willow quivers. As morn and eve, but never more, westward ships have waited in mortal waters as before, and their song has faded. And that is the last ship and the last poem on this Adventures of Tom Bombadil, as I said before. This is definitely, for me, reminds me of Grey Havens, of the elves going back to Valinor. However, it also, at the very end, this last page is the 7 rivers, and if I remember correctly of this Silmarillion, this might be the reference to Osiriand, the Greenland of the elves, the Green Elves, where they pretty much have, I want to say it's 7 rivers, because they kind of trickle from north to south. In the Osir, that's why it's the Greenlands. That's what I think. But I could be wrong, but obviously with the Grey Havens, they are saying that this is the last boat that's leaving, but this basically elf who was born basically in Middle-earth is trying to go to the boats, but she basically gets caught in the mud, and she kind of like, I guess, thinks of it as the way of the earth, making sure that she stays there because she was born there. That means she has to die there, I guess. I mean, she's also an elf, so, I mean, it depends, I guess, if she wants to or not. Because the elves here also say, green is the land, the leaves are long. Many a day with dawn of gold, this earth will lighten. So basically this whole concept, I think, are from the Green Elves of Assyrian, which is very cool. It's actually one of my favorite places in Beleriand in the First Age. Very cool land. But yeah, basically, it's a pretty straightforward story. The elves basically coming over to this ethereal elf maiden, and she wants to, but she's not able to because Middle-earth doesn't want her to go. Just like Middle-earth never wants any of us fans to go away, which is why we choose to stay. At least in my opinion, because it's fun to think about. But, okay, there you go. Done with Adventures of Tom Bombadil. So, very fun to read through all the poems that Tolkien has created. Obviously, there's a bunch more. There's like songs and poetry. You get stuff in the Silmarillion. You get stuff in The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings. It's all over the place. Tolkien was a very artistic man with his words and with his art. So, all of us can definitely appreciate all of that. But yeah, let me know your guys' thoughts on the poems and whatnot, because I had a fun time kind of interpreting them, rereading some of them, but also reading them for the first time and trying to get like a first impression. So, and obviously they're all very either really descriptive or fun or, just kind of like thought-provoking, like kind of just think about it for a little bit. So, yeah. And now that it's like the end of the series, if you guys are watching and you guys watch the other videos, you can let me know which piece of poetry was your favorite, because I have a few, but I can never choose one. So, but I think with all that out of the way, just be sure to subscribe to my channel. I would definitely appreciate that. I definitely do a lot of my personal hobbies on here. If you can't tell, a lot of my projects are spread out and I kind of release them one at a time. So it's been fun to basically just kind of release all the stuff that I enjoy and make and create onto my channel. So I definitely enjoy that. So I think with all the rambling and talking and all that stuff out of the way, just be sure to stay tuned for another episode of whatever I have next planned for reading Tolkien's very fun and fascinating stories. But yeah, stay tuned for that. And I'll see you guys in the next one. May the light of Elber be with you all. Farewell.